recorder. We'll start when you tell me. Okay. Good evening, everyone. The date is Wednesday, April 3rd. This is the West Bridgewater Board of Selectmen meeting. The time is 6:30 p.m. Before we stand for the pledge, please be aware that this meeting is being recorded for use on the internet and our local cable station. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Jumping right into the agenda for the evening. First article on the agenda are warrants and Board of Selectmen business. And the first item there is to review and vote on the fiscal 25 budget for the annual town meeting.
Yeah, so thank you. So as you know, you have spent the better part of the last 10 weeks reviewing budgets. You've reviewed all budgets in town and met department heads in their presentation. So my role at this point is to present to you a balanced budget. So I've reviewed all the budgets, and I'll just give you some quick highlights from 30,000 feet. The overall budget increase presented to you that I'm recommending to you is just under 5.8% increase. That's a $2.4 million year over year. There are three large drivers to that. That is both the schools and also our benefits, which obviously we have little control over. The town side budget, which means we exclude water, because remember, water is paid for water rates. The town side is paid from the tax rate. That's an increase of $2.2 million, or 5.7%. The budget that I'm proposing to you this evening, I've made minimal changes to. In years past, we've made other cuts, but we're not doing that this year. At least I'm not recommending that this year. I've had to make some increases that I've told the board along the way. For example, our solid waste contracts required a 2.5% increase, and also the cleaning contracts that we did. And also at the beginning of the year, we don't always know what our insurance is going to be until we get re-rated. That starts on July 1st. You'll also recall at our last meeting is that I asked the board if we could increase the budget by $15 for additional training, which the board agreed, which I was glad to see. The Finance Committee is fully funded for a reserve fund. That's $67,000 in case there's ever an issue during the course of the year that we can also transfer. Also note, just some other items, is that the entire town operating budget side, this is all budgets, are up $458,000. That does not include non-discretionary accounts. So that does not include insurance, that does not include benefits, that does not include, there's one other one, insurance, benefits, and one other one that escapes me for the second. I'll remember in a moment. So anyway, so the town operating budgets are up about 3.95%. I am recommending that we fund the full local school budget. It is a 6.93% year over year. I am stating that these increases are not sustainable. There was an 8% last year, a 7% this year, but you just can't continue to go up that much in that one budget. And the reason for that is because the school makes up on an operational budget, there it is, debt. So the insurance, debt, and benefits are the three items that are not included in operational budgets. They make up 57% of the entire town's budget. So that means that if their budget increases are proportionally or disproportionately higher, it obviously has a larger impact on the budget overall. So their increase of $1.2 million, which we're going to show in a moment, is much more than what the 2.5% increase is that's allowed into Proposition 2.5. However, there are some positive things about the school budget. One is that it is a % decrease year over year, so it's trending in the right direction. We all knew, and we were warned by the school committee and the school superintendent, is that when the ESSER funds, which was federal funds that was provided as part of COVID relief, when those ran out, we were going to have to make up that difference. So we are making up that difference. And the other item is that they are budgeting less school choice children, which is going to have a better long-term benefit to the town as well. So there's some bright sides on that. On the revenue side, a couple of items also of note. Our state aid net increase this year is only $426,000. Last year, it was $1.2 million. The other is in paragraph 2 is you'll see that out of that $426,000, $407,000 of it is related to educational aid. That means that state aid is only 18 grand. All other budgets for local aid is 18 grand. So it is clear that what the legislature has done when they say that they're increasing state aid or providing a lot, they're just pulling it under the umbrella of educational aid and moving it from what used to be traditional local aid. You'll see what I'm doing with receipts. Historically, we are around $3 million. Last year, we had a very large spike. I will tell you that 2 items that drove that. One is that we received a lot of interest income that we have not received in the past. While interest rates have a negative effect on most aspects of our life, the one positive is that when you have millions of dollars sitting in your bank account, it generates a lot of interest. So we are literally 20-fold of what we normally generate on an annual basis. We all know the Federal Reserve has said this year they intend to lower interest rates 3 times this year. We'll see if that number comes true or not. But when they start lowering interest rates, our interest will lower, right? So this was a nice spike, and also we still have some growth in town. So I'm going to continue to estimate $3 million. I'm giving an example right below the chart that one of the reasons that I am always conservative on receipts is because in FY21, had I actually used the previous year's receipts, we would have been at $400,000 in the hole because we took in less money than we did the previous year. So receipts are always volatile, so we have to be conservative. In sum, I'm just letting you know that the 5.74% increase, because that outstrips the 2.5% normally allowed under Proposition 2.5, that means that we are using some extraordinary measures in order to make this budget work, which I'll highlight in just a moment. We use $350,000 every single year from our free cash, and we do that not to set aside for the school debt, but it was as a result of the school debt with a new school. The selectmen at that time tasked me with finding a way to be able to minimize that impact. So that's what we've always done. The nice thing is that after 11 years, we have lowered the tax burden by $3.8 million to all of our taxpayers. They don't know it, but their taxes would be that equivalent higher over that period of time. So I think that's a positive. The next page is that, as I state, is that even using the $3 million in receipts, which is our historical norm, I'm going to have to pull $903,000 from our free cash, which is surplus cash generated this past year, to fill that hole. And understand why. Is that when we have an operating budget increase of $2.2 million, $100,000 is for the assessing overlay, think of what these other numbers represent. $407,000 an increase in state aid, local aid of $18,000. Our 2.5% is $677. We should not be transferring free cash to take care of our budgets. What that is the equivalent of is that every single year a relative gives you $1,000 at Christmas time, and you use that money to pay your bills. Well, one year you may not get that money. We're not always going to generate this free cash. So that means technically is that we should only be looking at about a $1.2 million increase in order to be able to fund our budgets. You're looking at 2.3. It's not sustainable. It's just math. This isn't singling anything out. One item that has helped us and generate free cash is our growth. You'll see that we had $566,000 of growth this past year. But again, that's an anomaly. We've always been in the low to mid 4s. So I'm budgeting $400,000 again this year. I am hoping, in full candor, is that we are going to have the warehouse hopefully come online this year. In that 40B project over on Route 106 should come online this year as well. We'll pick up some more growth from there. So we may actually be closer to that $500,000, but I don't want to actually budget for it in case it doesn't come in. With that said, I have provided to you a one-page cheat sheet, if you will, as to what the adjustments I made in the budgets. If you want to go through them, I will. But for the most part, I have made additions, which are on the right side, which only reflected, increase in our cleaning costs, increase in our solid waste. And in one particular case, the sailor and weights, there was an error in the budget proposal that did not include the 3% increase in the salary. So I made those adjustments. In the benefits, I also had to make the adjustment in our workers' comp insurance. Not a lot, $5,000 out of a $8 million budget, but I made that adjustment. And in the water department, I always backfill their insurance and their benefits budget. They came in reflecting a 10 to 11% increase estimate, and it only came in 4 to 5%. So I lowered it accordingly. That's in column 1 of 12 grand. And then you'll also recall at last year's town meeting, they were funded a truck, and that truck debt payment has to be paid in their budget. So I had to add that to it. So in the end, I made about $62,000 worth of net adjustments. And the next page then reflects all of those adjustments specific to those budgets with the 5.7% increase at the end. I'll answer any questions, and then at the end, we can either look at individual budgets or we'll ask for a vote of the bottom number. And that number then is what will be provided to the Finance Committee tomorrow night for their review.
I think to comment or to add to your point about sustainability, the piece that you didn't mention because it's not here today and not reflective of this budget is also the fact that at some point, in some way, shape, or form, the town probably needs an additional school or a replacement school, potentially. And I know that piece is going through, but the cost of that, again, is going to be in the tens of millions that will additionally hit taxpayers. So we've got this one piece where we're somewhat maxing out our spend, and then on top of that, we could come back potentially with a significant increase in taxes to support that school. It's all going to be voted on, everything else. But looking at the future, both of those things, on top of increased water rates for treatment plants, but assuming that passes town meeting, there's a lot of pressure on the taxpayer. So we can't get, as you said, we can't sustain that type of budget growth, and across the budget, but the school being the majority of that growth, that's what stands out. So, and I know we spoke to the school committee about that last time, and I know they've got their job to do too, but got to find a way to do it at a reasonable, a lower rate that the town can absorb a little better. Aside from that, I don't have any other questions on anything that's been presented.
I feel like it was talked about before, but line 1550, the information system.
Yes. So 1550, the $11,000, as you'll know, that Jeff spearheaded a communications committee. And so we are now going to be looking at a more robust website, also with emergency and alert system. And Jeff, if you want to speak more to it, but after going out to bid, these were the lowest prices that we could get.
Yeah, so quickly on the communication committee, we went and looked at a bunch of different websites, a couple of different emergency alert as well, reverse 911, whatever you want to call it. And the committee felt that while one or two others might have offered, just say, a few more features, the responsible thing to do was work with our current vendor to upgrade the existing website. So in that $11,000, there's a one-time charge of $4,000 to revamp the current website and also to set up the emergency alert. And then after that, that line item would reduce to $7,000 a year.
And is that set in stone, the 7,000, or
What's that? I'm sorry.
is that going to be a repeat? Like
that would be an annual charge.
But it could change.
No, it's at least locked in for 5 years. Well, on the website side, it's locked in for 5 years. We haven't. I don't know on the emergency alert. If I assume there could be a small increase on an annual basis. So.
I got nothing else.
Okay. And one other item of note, I have not made an adjustment on this, but the Board of Health, the last handful of years, they receive a stipend as an elected official the way you do and other boards and committees do. That stipend has been the same all the years that I have been here and for many years beforehand as well. And they put in a 4% COLA adjustment increase. I did not make that change. It's only $200. It's not a lot of money. It's going to make no impact on the budget. It has no impact, obviously, on the tax side. But I have always been a big believer in fairness, and we have not provided COLA increases to elected officials in the past. The town clerk is outside of that because she's a full-time employee. And I just feel like if we're going to do it for one, we should do it for everybody. And I also don't think as a non-resident appointed official, it's really my place to make that reduction. So I have recommended it in this budget. It is something I'll make sure that is brought up at the Finance Committee. I'll let them make whatever decision they want to make because they're the ones that have to defend it at town meeting. But I am uncomfortable with seeing one board looking for similar cost of living. Quite frankly, 4% is more than most department heads are receiving. I'm not getting for it, and I'm not complaining. But, but it's most other people in town are not receiving 4%, and we're going to do it for the elected board members. So, but I'm also uncomfortable making that change myself. I think the Finance Committee needs to weigh in on that. But I just want to make sure the board's aware.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on it. I don't think we should be adjusting any salary like that, our own included, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I don't need an increase.
So if there's any other questions, I'll certainly be happy to answer them. If not, the full budget presented to you, this is the operating budget, is $44,610,754. I would be looking for a vote on that, and that's what will be presented to the Finance Committee tomorrow evening.
I'll make a motion to accept the FY25 budget for annual town meeting as presented.
I'll second vote in favor.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is vote on articles to be placed on warrant for the annual town meeting.
So I will quickly go through this. This is all warrant articles. Most of them you've already seen, and the ones you haven't seen are the reoccurring ones on an annual basis. Normally what we do is that I will go through all of these. If you have any questions, just put a little mark on it and we'll go back at the end. And tonight you are not voting on whether you are in favor or not. As a board, you're more than welcome to speak to that. But at your next meeting, you will vote as to whether or not you are in favor of them. Tonight, you have the exclusive right to decide as to whether or not you want these on the warrant for the town to actually look at and vote on. So tonight it's just a matter, would you like the town to have it on the town warrant? The first two are what we call consent articles. The little town officer books that we do on an annual basis as a statutory requirement. And the second one is that if we have to enter into contracts with Mass DOT during the course of the year. Article 3 is in reference to setting salaries for elected officials. And Article 4 you just vote on, which is your budget. Article 5, the assessors max out the current exemptions allowed for the people who qualify for it. That's why you see 25% increase. That's our maximum that we're allowed to go up. Again, annual. The next one, Article 6, we receive funding from the state to go towards our highways or towards our road construction. That's Mass DOT funding. That's an annual one. And Article 7 is the amount of money that you will receive that is unspent and that goes into these respective buckets for the CPA or the Community Preservation Account. Article 8, Article 9, and Article 10 are our CPA articles. Namely, it is the last payment of debt on the Friendship Park. It is for the fish ladder, and it is for the veterans' graves. Article 11 is our annual article for OPEB, which is our long-term costs and expenses. We've been placing somewhere between around $100,000 per year, and I'm recommending that, and then we would take that out of free cash. So none of these are borrowing articles. Article 12 is an annual request as well from the police department. They are part of a regional task force The task force receives funds from every single town, and then there is either a match or a super match from the state or from the DA's office. That's $10,000. Article 13 is going to be a request to remove our police department and therefore our police chief from civil service. That was negotiated with the union, the police union. They are in agreement, and as a result, we'll be looking to remove ourselves from civil service. Article 14 will be to take $500,000 from free cash and to put it into our town stabilization fund. When I got here 11 years ago, you had $11,000. You now have $2.8 million, but a couple of years ago, you had $3.3. When COVID hit and we wanted to fund raises, we took $500,000 out. So this is we had made a commitment that once able, we would put that money back. The goal from DOR is to try to get to a 10% in stabilization of what your operational budget is. So your operational budget just voted on is $44 million. By rights, we really should be at $4.4 million. But I will tell you, once we get back to 3.2, we're ahead of most towns. Article 15 is legislation from the state a handful of years ago that whenever somebody does a ride-sharing ride, Uber, Lyft, primary two, is that there is a fee assessed to them, and if you do it within that respective town, that money comes back to the town and must be placed into a town infrastructure fund. So we are funding sidewalks and all those on an annual basis. It's $2,000. It's not a lot of money, but we just place it in that fund. The next one is your sidewalks, roads, street improvements, which also includes speed humps, and that'll be $300,000. Now we're going to turn our attention to capital budget items. These ones you have seen in the past, so I'll go through them pretty fast, but I'll answer any questions if you have it. Town clerk for a digital sign, DPW for a street sweeper, a plow, and an exhaust wheel. Also to fix the culvert on Grant Street and to purchase a lift in the DPW facility. The police department will have one for a new cruiser, and the fire department will have two. One is to replace protective equipment gear for them, and the other is to purchase and replace an old Jaws of Life with a new one. The Council on Aging, Article 26, has one to install new flooring, and Article 27 and 28 is from the school. The first one is in reference to Chromebooks, and the other one is for new copy machines. The next three are all water articles. The first three of them are they will use their water surplus or pay cash for them, a heavy equipment trailer, a light utility trailer, and a lawnmower. Article 32 will be a borrowing article for $10.7 million for a new water treatment plant. Article 33, the Board of Selectmen tasked me with earlier in the year, is to amend your name from Board of Selectmen to Select Board and to make sure that our bylaws appropriately represent that. Article 34 is to have the tree warden go from an elected position to an appointed position by the Board of Selectmen. Article 35 is to allow mobile food trucks as an allowed use in the town. Article 36, another general bylaw. This was presented or requested from the mobile home parks to increase the storage size of their storage utility sheds. Article 37 is to amend for contractor storage yards. In the end, the real change is that they are allowed right now in general residential, and we would no longer allow them there, so contractors' yards would only be allowed in the business industrial sectors. So no longer in the, actually, they will not be allowed in the town center either. Article 38, which is the digital message boards. The only real change on this is because remember last time there was a proposal to also delete it in the town center. That has been amended since our last meeting. So the only change is to not allow digital message board signs in residential areas. Article 39 is to allow mixed use. Again, we discussed that last time, to allow an apartment above a commercial entity. And what I was unaware of at the time, but I have further received education on this, is that it's only real changes in the business area. It's never been allowed in the general residential area because commercial is not allowed in it. It's not allowed in the industrial area. It would remain allowed in the town center, but the big change is to allow it in the business sector. Our business sector is 500 feet off of our two main roads in town, 106 and Route 28. It's not allowed use right now, so it's an appropriate place for it. Article 40 is for the accessory dwelling unit, basically better known as for an in-law unit. Article 41 is to consolidate under our water resource area. Right now, if some entity needs to get a permit, they have to go before the ZBA and the planning board. And sometimes conflict erupts. The zoning board wants something, the planning board doesn't, or vice versa, and we've asked that applicant to spend a lot more money. So what we've done is that we are looking to clean up the language. They still have to get a permit, but if it's in the Water Resource Protection District, they go to the planning board. Anywhere else, they just go to the ZBA, which is what it currently is. Article 42 is the article that the Board of Selectmen is proposing, which is to increase the size of both single-family dwellings and two-family dwellings for acreage lots. And Article 43 is to accept, I think it's Loop Drive. Lamppost Lane, sorry, Lamppost Lane. It's to accept Lamppost Lane. That'll be supported by the planning board. So at this point, I'll answer any questions that you have. If there aren't any, I would ask you to have a vote as to which to place on the warrant. And if you're going to place all of them, then just one vote is fine. You don't have to go through each one.
I have nothing at this point. Everything's been spoken prior to. But Mike, I will defer to you.
Yeah, I don't have anything at this point either. At this point, I'll make a motion to place on the 2025 warrant for the annual town meeting as presented.
I will second and vote in favor.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, just approve the meeting minutes for March 7th, 2024. We have a motion.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for March 7th, 2024.
Second, vote in favor. Next, accept the meeting minutes of March 20th for review. March 20th, 2024 for review.
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of March 2024 for review.
I have vote second and vote in favor. All right, next, accept the capital budget meeting minutes for March 19th for review.
So, that should actually be for a review and approval. So just do me a favor, just make the motion for review and approval. So you are not the capital budget committee, but they only meet to review, and they don't meet again for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we would be in violation of the open meeting law. And so as a result, because you are considered the parent board, the parent board can approve it, so that way, under an open meeting law request, if somebody wants the minutes, they can have it.
Okay.
So there'll be no other changes, so if you don't mind, you can just either do review and approval, or just do approval.
I make a motion to accept the capital budget meeting minutes of March 19, 2024 for review and approval.
I second, vote in favor. Next on the agenda is communications from boards, commissions, and town officials. The first item is to vote to accept Jerry Lawrence's resignation from the Southeastern Regional School Committee.
So his resignation, his request is to have it effective on June 6th. There's no action or motion that's needed at this point. This is just an FYI. The election will be held in November, so you will have a choice. This board, in consultation with the school committee, can vote another member after June 6th to serve that term until November's election. Or you could choose not to make an appointment and then just have somebody run for it in November, and whoever wins, wins. So we'll revisit it again in the future. Just, it was really an FYI to the board so you were aware.
And if anybody's listening and is interested, right, they can reach out to the Selectmen's office.
1,000% correct.
Okay, super. Next is another resignation, and that is vote to accept Dylan Cragen's resignation from the Open Space and Recreation Committee. That's pretty straightforward. Dylan has served on this committee for a while. He's also a water commissioner, and he also has a couple of young kids that are absorbing more and more of his time, and he's definitely making the right choice with the right priority here. So, I hope you have fun, Dylan, and thank you for your service on the Open Space Committee. Anything? Perfect. All right, correspondence from the public to determine a course of action. There's nothing. We will move to public comment period. And Ms. Lee, you once again, Mrs. Lee, excuse me, you once again represent the entire public of West Bridgewater. If there's anything you want to say it now. Moving along, town administrator's report.
Sure, so thank you. So the first is I'll be looking for a vote. As part of the Lincoln Street project, we have to do a handful of easements and takings, and that requires an appraisal company. We signed an agreement with them a couple of years ago, and they're doing their due diligence. Part of their due diligence is that we will also be doing a land swap. Please recall the current Dempsey property, which is now owned by them, is now going to be the new Lincoln Street. And the old Lincoln Street is going to be their property. So according to mass procurement laws, there's an appraisal process that has to be done. As part of that, valuations will have to be assessed, and then we'll do a swap. There will be no money exchange of hands. And as part of that, I have to do an amendment to the existing contract. We are not paying for this. As part of the TIF agreement, we negotiated that they had to give us a check for $275,000 in advance that would cover all of these expenses. So this amendment is for $12,550. So I'll be looking for a vote, asking for a vote to approve the appraisal amendment for GPI, for the GPI contract as presented.
I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the GPI appraisal amendment for Lincoln Street project as presented.
I will second and vote in favor.
Thank you. The next is just a handful of FYIs for people who are using our town roads or our town properties for their respective events. I also want to say thank you to the Open Space Committee. They do this every single year on Earth Day, April 20th. They will have a cleanup event, and I think it's 11 to 1, if I recall correctly. And there it is. You'll meet at St. Anne's Church parking lot, and they go out and they clean respective areas. And also thank you to Wind Waste Innovations, because they actually dispose of the trash on our behalf at no additional cost. The last is that I attended a Plymouth County seminar last week, and they have secured a grant in order to allow an outside firm to be able to do some cybersecurity assessments on each and every municipality. It doesn't cost us anything. I do think that we have a pretty robust and first-rate organization that does it for us, but there's no harm in having somebody else and taking an assessment and poke and prod, and let's see as to whether or not we have any weaknesses. So I have signed up with that. Our IT director is aware. The vendor is aware as well. They've already seen this in the other towns that they do business in as well. But I don't think that you can have enough cybersecurity in today's day and age. So I took that extra step, especially when it doesn't cost the town any money, and maybe we'll find something that we have to address.
Final on the agenda is a motion to adjourn. Would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mike, I'm gonna have to learn to turn right for the next meeting, but nonetheless, I will second your motion to adjourn, and we'll go from there. Thank you all.